Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Gaithersburg Saltwatch Kickoff webinar tonight. So we are going to be hearing from a series of presenters today, which you can see on your webcams right now. We are going to hear from myself. I'm Sam Briggs. I'm the Clean Water Program Director for the Isaac Walton League. Michael Wyand, who's with the City of Gaithersburg Stormwater Division. We have Jaree Donnelly, who's with Gaithersburg Parks, Arts and Recreation Corporation, also known as G-Park. And then Carl Van Ness, who's the director with the Muddy Branch Alliance. So a few housekeeping things before I dive right into my presentation. You all are automatically muted, so you don't have to worry about that. If you have any questions along the way for any of the presenters, feel free to throw them into the questions panel or pane on your control panel, and I will make sure to keep tab on those. I'm also moderating, and we're going to save questions for the end. So as you think of them, feel free to type them in, and we will go ahead and address those at the end to any of the presenters. That just helps if we have any questions that fit with more than one presenter's presentation, that they can both have a stab at answering that. If you have any technical difficulties, questions along those lines, feel free to throw those in the questions pane as well, and I'll be able to help troubleshoot. This presentation should go for about an hour. But feel free to, send us an email and keep in touch after the fact if you don't have a chance to ask a question along the way or think of one, down the road. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My other presenters can feel free to turn off their webcams in the meantime. All right. So as I mentioned, I'm Sam Briggs. I'm the Clean Water Program Director for the Isaac Walton League of America. Our headquarters, we're a national organization that was founded in 1922, so we're approaching our 100th anniversary. But our headquarters is actually based in Gaithersburg, Maryland, which is why this Saltwatch program in Gaithersburg is really hitting home for us right now. Our headquarters is off of Muddy Branch. We do a lot of sampling on Muddy Branch. Water quality issues in Gaithersburg impact a lot of our training and our water quality for our headquarters. So you should come stop by and visit us sometime. I've been at the league for about 5 years, 5.5. So I've been here for the full 4 years of Saltwatch and watched this program grow and get broader in terms of, across different parts of the country, but then also more intensive in regions like the city of Gaithersburg. So I'll go ahead and dive right in here. So our Saltwatch program began on Muddy Branch Road, which you can see here. So we had a salt spill in January of 2018, I believe it was. And this is what the salt spill looked like. This is Muddy Branch Road right outside our headquarters. And at the time we had a Clean Water Fellow, Scott, who was outraged by this pile of salt. He was asking if he could go out there and clean it up, and I was like, no, cars drive like 50 miles an hour on that road. That's not safe. And he was monitoring in the meantime and saw Muddy Branch go from about 30 parts per million of chloride pollution up to 600 overnight, because there is a storm drain right here. So when it rains, when there's a melt, all that chloride is flowing right into our stream. So he called the county said it was in the city's jurisdiction. He called the city was like, I think that's the county's jurisdiction. And eventually he called MDE, and the salt pile did end up getting cleaned up. So this was clearly, just like a technical error where salt got dropped. But it really, kind of enlightened this issue for us and told us that if this is an issue here in Maryland, where there's realistically not a ton of snow, this would be an issue all over the country. So the goal of Winter Saltwatch is to raise awareness in the general public about the connection between salt and stream health, to identify chloride hotspots in freshwater, and advocate for smarter application of road salt by sharing results with private landowners and local and state agencies. So obviously the salt, once it gets into freshwater streams, it can affect fish, macroinvertebrates, plankton, microbes. Vernal pools are more intensely affected, and mammals drinking from high chloride streams can be negatively impacted as well. What a lot of folks don't realize is it also impacts our drinking water. The typical wastewater and drinking water treatment plants are not equipped to filter out excess salt. So as a result, during the winter months, we tend to take in more of that salt in our diets because of our drinking water. It's also important to note that there are infrastructure impacts with chloride pollution. The salts can actually corrode pipes, which can leach heavy metals, especially if you have older infrastructure, into your drinking water. So you can request a free Saltwatch kit, which is the contents you can see here. For Gaithersburg, we also have some great stickers this year that are included in your kit. So your kit comes with 4 Saltwatch test strips, postcards that help you submit your data as well as take pictures of your results, as well as a couple of stickers. It also has a conversion chart for you so you can see how many parts per million of chloride are actually in that sample once you take your reading. So we encourage volunteers to monitor with their 4 strips before winter storms. So now is a great time to get out before we start to get any snow and ice. That helps you get a baseline reading. After the salt has been applied to roads, after a warm day or a rainstorm where the salt is washing into your stream, and after, you know, multiple snow events. So if you find that you're using up your 4 test strips and you want to go out and sample more streams, just let us know and we can send you more. You're not limited to just those 4, it's just what we start you with. So this is what our instruction sheets look like. You can submit your data via the Water Reporter app, which is really nice and easy because you just go out there, you take your sample, it geolocates for you so you don't need to know your Latin long, and you snap a picture of your test strip and send it off to us. And these are the instructions on how to do that. If you have any questions about that process, you can either shoot us an email or we have a couple videos showing you how to actually submit your data to make sure that it comes our way. This is what our typical Saltwatch submission post looks like. So this is our conversion chart with our test strip. This monitor is holding it up so you can see it really nicely, snapped a picture and submitted it to Water Reporter. And they did a great job of also giving us some extra information, like where specifically they were monitoring beyond Latin long, the date, that it was prior to an ice event, and it was followed by a rain event. So that's all really helpful information for us. And so with that, we're getting a lot of great before and after readings. So you can see here, this is Cabin John Creek in Maryland, before the winter storm and then after the winter storm. So it started at 123 parts per million, and now it's over 610. That literally topped out the charts on these Saltwatch strips. Another example in Kingsville, Maryland, also spiked from 88 parts per million all the way up to 615. Just after one winter snow event where it's melting and going into the streams, we'll see those chloride levels spike. That's one of the issues in Maryland is we freeze and thaw a lot more than colder places. So we'll see influxes of road salt into our streams more often than if it was just a pure freeze. So these are the results nationally from 2018 to 2021. So you'll notice we do have a lot of green dots, which means there's not a lot of salt in our streams all the time. And that's because we have a lot of folks taking baseline readings. We've had milder winters over these 4 years. So we are getting some good data that's showing that it's not an issue everywhere. But in urban areas like the DC metro area, like Gaithersburg, you'll see that we do get very high readings year round. So the thresholds that we use are that 0 to 30 parts per million is below the detection limit of the strips that we use. That's great. That's what we want to see. 30 to 100 parts per million, it might be a natural amount of chloride. It might not. It depends on, you know, your consistent data that you're taking. 100 to 229, that's above your natural background chloride levels. That's when we start to see it get elevated. And then 230 parts per million and above, that's above the EPA threshold for chronic exposure. So if it stays consistently above 230 parts per million, that is a problem. So here's our chart from last season, last winter, salt pollution in the US. The bigger the dot, that means the more readings that we had. So you see in our area here, in the DC metro region, the Philadelphia metro region, we got a lot of readings and a lot of high chloride there. And then you can see in the Washington, D.C. metro region, tons of big red dots. The largest one happens to be over the city of Gaithersburg. That doesn't mean that the city of Gaithersburg has more salt pollution than other places. That means we have a lot of really great engaged people that are consistently taking that data. So it looks like it's a worse problem here, but in reality, we just have more information about the problem here as well. Here's another map for you all to see. This is the DC metro area from 2018 to 2021. You can see in the Gaithersburg region, we consistently get above 230 parts per million of that chloride. Once again, we do have a lot of really great monitors here that are consistently taking data, and that kind of inflates those results, and we'd like to see that fill in for the rest of the state as well. And here you can see those dots on top of that map. So we got a lot of monitoring on Muddy Branch here in Gaithersburg, which is where you see all those yellow and red dots right here. And we're hoping with this Gaithersburg Saltwatch initiative that we really fill in the entire area of Gaithersburg, the 10 square miles, with tons of Saltwatch data. All right, and here's an example of one stream site. So you can see that this is in Malcolm King Park, which is Muddy Branch, before it hits our headquarters. You can see that over the winter in February of 2021, we got some really high chloride readings above 600 parts per million. And then as we got into the spring and summer, those chloride readings went down, but they still stayed fairly elevated. We're still, around 200 for much of the spring and summer. So it's showing that it's more of a chronic issue and not just a seasonal one. All right, so we also provide folks with advocacy resources. So once you learn that there's a problem, we like to help you do something about it. So that's either calling your local government, sharing best practices with your community or your property managers, writing a letter to your state legislator or city council, writing letters to the editor, handing out flyers. We have tons of resources so you can get engaged, whether it's, to the state or the feds or, to your next door neighbor. And so new this year is the specific Gaithersburg Saltwatch program, which is in partnership and funded by the city of Gaithersburg and the Chesapeake Bay Trust. So we're here to really find out how salty Gaithersburg streams are. So you can find a bunch of Gaithersburg specific resources at saltwatchgaithersburg.org or iwla.org/saltwatchgaithersburg, and I'll throw that in the chat once I'm done with my presentation as well. With the Saltwatch Gaithersburg website, we have some background info. You can join Saltwatch and request your free kit right on that webpage, which you can see where it says take the Saltwatch pledge. That's our sign up for getting a Saltwatch kit, and we'll just put that in the mail to you. We have some information about things going on in the Gaithersburg community, like different events where you can come see us. This webinar was obviously one of our events. The G Park folks, which we'll hear from Jeree, have been doing a Paint the Plow initiative, which has been great. And then we have some Gaithersburg specific flyers. Some of our clean water staff will also be at the Jingle Jubilee tree lighting on December 4th. So you can come and get some cool Saltwatch swag as well as some more test kits there if you're interested. We also have a ton of great Gaithersburg specific information on that website, including where to report illicit discharge, how the city of Gaithersburg is working to reduce their salt impact, where to report salt spills so you can get them cleaned up, and then more information on snow removal in Gaithersburg. Also, really important information, which the city of Gaithersburg made this map for us, is whose jurisdiction your street is, or whatever street you're on that you see a salt spill. So that helps you kind of determine if it's the state's responsibility, the county's responsibility, or the city's responsibility, or private. So this map is on that website and totally interactive. So you can zoom in, find where you are, find where a salt spill is, and know who to report it to. So in your community, what you can do, you can keep monitoring and sharing your results. Having enough data to back up what we think is a huge problem is really, really important. So if you do request a kit, be sure to go out the 4 times or go above and beyond and ask for more strips from us, and share those results with us. Also new this year, we are selecting a monthly Salt Watcher of the Month. So the folks that are really going above and beyond, we are naming Salt Watchers of the Month. We already have one up for this month. So make sure to, if you have any success stories, send them our way so we can put you in the running. And then for every result that we get for Saltwatch, we are doing a raffle. So a monthly raffle to send you like a nice Fulton League Nalgene and some other Saltwatch swag. So make sure you're submitting your readings so you can potentially be either our Salt Watcher of the Month or our raffle winner. In your community, you can also tell neighbors and local businesses about smarter salt use. We have flyers that will help you do that. Don't be fooled by eco or pet-friendly packaging. So there's really no regulation behind the words they put on road salt packaging. So just because they're saying it's eco or pet-friendly doesn't mean it actually has less salts in it or less chlorides. So just be wary of that and make sure to report oversalting to your city or county so that can be rectified. And with that, I'll leave you with this link as well as our contact info. You can reach any of our Clean Water Program staff at that saltwatch@iwla.org email. We all monitor that email box. So feel free to reach out if you have questions. If you're working with a group or a school or something and want to request multiple kits, we can send those your way. And then you can find us at iwla.org/Saltwatch Gaithersburg for all that Gaithersburg specific. And now that I have said Gaithersburg 500 times already today, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Wyand with the City of Gaithersburg Stormwater. And so let me just give you presenter power. There you go.
Thanks, Sam. I'm definitely looking forward to getting myself some of that Saltwatch swag you mentioned. Okay, do you see my screen? Okay, here's that. Let me see.
I see some sand dunes.
Yeah, that's my screen. Hold on one second. I forgot I had to start up my presentation first and then share.
Yeah, I can see it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Okay, let me minimize this. Get this out of my way. Move that. Okay, so yeah, my name is Michael Wyand and I work at the City of Gaithersburg and I'm the watershed restoration specialist there. And I'm going to change my slide here. Turn on the laser pointer. All right, here we go. So today I really wanted to just kind of outline what Gaithersburg is doing as far as their salting practices at the city. And I was going to start with a little bit of a personal background and then talk about the actual salting practices we do, and then go into some of the reduction measures that we have in place, and then talk about the Chesapeake Bay Trust Grant Program, which this initiative has been funded through. And really the purpose of this presentation is to help, share how we at Gaithersburg are embracing some of the best practices out there to try to reduce the amount of salt that are going onto the roads. And to begin here, let's go next. All right. So where I'm from Western New York, and I wanted to start up there because when I was growing up as a kid, I would go out with my dad and we would do plowing like out in the middle of the night whenever a snowstorm hit. And I just truly kind of, I really reflect with the different staff at Gaithersburg that have to go out in the middle of the night to go out and clear off all the streets out there, because I believe there is about 200 like lane miles out in the city. So it's a lot of roads that they have to care for. And when I was growing up, I had this connection with the land out here, and you'll see this is the picture of kind of Western New York out there. And I thought it was appropriate because of the peak foliage that's happening right there, and the peak foliage that's kind of going on right now. And I did some soil technician work when I was just out of college. And then that soil technician work kind of brought me down here to Montgomery County, where I absolutely fell in love with just, the land that is going on. And, I do really appreciate all of the efforts that Sam and the Isaac Walton League and Emily and Kira are doing with their Saltwatch program, because it is so important to understand what our water is like, how clean our water is and how much salt that is actually going into it, because of the harmful effects it can have on our aquatic systems. So, you know, I truly believe that the work that Sam is doing and that Carl is doing and that Jeree is going to talk about is super important to keeping a healthy watershed. And so before I go on, I also wanted to do a native land acknowledgement and talk that, you know, the land that I grew up on in Western New York was Seneca land. And now that I'm down here in Maryland, I reside on some Piscataway land. And I'm going to go to the next slide here. Go over. And this is a really cool map that if you ever want to find out exactly what type of native land you're on, you can go to this website down here, the native like #land.ca, and it'll show you exactly what type of native land that you're on. I'll go here. Okay, so what do I do? Well, at Gaithersburg, I do a bunch of different stuff, but first and foremost, I eat a lot of ice cream. You know, I'm probably a professional ice cream eater. No, I'm just kidding. So really what I do is I work with the community. I do a lot of outreach efforts. And then here in the middle, you'll see I did some stream monitoring stuff with the county. And then I do some composting work and any kind of environmental stuff. But really what I try to pride myself on doing is just keeping a healthy watershed through stewardship and community. And that's why I'm such a fan of this Saltwatch program, because I believe that it really hits all of those check marks for making a wonderful watershed. Here. All right. So Gaithersburg is about 44% impervious, meaning it has a bunch of hardened surfaces where water can't get through. And because of that, it all runs off into our streams. And if a part of that 44% impervious is a lot of buildings out there, but a lot of that also is roads and sidewalks, all of those different areas that we end up actually putting salt on. So just to like kind of put some context out there, there is a lot of impervious on the ground. Next here. And this is a slide, if you're familiar with a lot of stormwater or watershed presentations, you probably have seen this one. But this one talks about the stream health. And as stream health is the healthiest when there's less impervious or less hardened surfaces out there. And then as you kind of grow in the amount of impervious, which you can see down here on the bottom, you'll notice that the stream health starts falling and you start losing some of those really important aquatic species. So as I was saying in that last slide, we're about 44% impervious, and you can tell we're well above, you know, where we start losing some of our healthy species. So the most we can do, or as much as we can do to help prevent those chlorides from going in the water, it's really important to just maintain exactly what species we do have in place. Go next here. All right, move some of these screens out of the way. And here are some of our salting numbers. Gaithersburg treats and plows about 230 lane miles. And I put that kind of in perspective from pretty much where we are down here in the city of Gaithersburg area, all the way up to where I'm from in New York. That's about like a straight line distance is 230 miles. So they have to care for a good amount of roads out there. And the city uses approximately 950 tons of road salt per year. And based on like how much salt they're putting down, they use somewhere between 300 and 500 pounds of salt per lane mile. Let's see, I can go next. Okay, and so the top priority when salting is happening is really to reduce the amount of accidents that are happening out there. So public safety is really one of the foremost concerns when we're actually putting out salt. And here. And the order that salt or snow is actually removed is they start on the primary roads, which are the emergency salt lanes. There's the secondary roads, and then the neighborhood roads, and then the courts come next. So how much salt is too much salt? Well, there's a chart out there that they use from the state, and it's kind of a complicated one, but you'll see on the left side here, it's the temperature. So it goes from 32 degrees down to 0. And over here on the on this side over here, there's too much salt when refreezing occurs or too little salt that occurs. So based on how warm the ground is or how the temperature of the impervious surface or the hard surface kind of determines how much salt they're actually putting down, and there's a percentage there. So as you go down in, you know, how cold it is, there's a more specific number that needs to be put on, and that is concentrated by, or that is calculated by some of the spreader calibrations. So how much they type in like the numbers, and then how much salt actually gets spread out on the ground. And we'll go next here. Okay, so what are some of the measures that are in place to help prevent oversalting from happening at Gaithersburg? Well, they use some brine out there, which brine is just kind of diluted salt, where they kind of mix it up into this little mixture, and they'll go out and they'll pre-treat the roads. Then there's also yearly calibrations of the tailgate spreaders, meaning that they'll go out and make sure that the spreaders are actually working correctly on the back of the trucks. So when they go out, that doesn't accidentally have some of those spills that are out there. And then number 3, we have they have the Maryland pavement sensors. So they'll go out and look to see how cold or warm the temperature is to help kind of them dial in how much exact salt that they need to put. Then they have a contractor weather forecaster. So this is a pretty expensive service that allows them to really understand how much weather is coming into the area. And without that, you could put down some salt and not really need it. And then there's electronic speed controls, which helps the distribution of the salt. And as you're kind of going along, you're not going too fast where there's not enough salt that's going on the ground, or you're going too slow where then there's a ton of salt that's getting put out. So that helps kind of precisely put down the right amount of salt. And then there's staff training days out there where it's called the snow rodeo, that all of the snow removal team goes to, and they drive around the trucks. But it helps teach the staff in kind of a fun way. And you'll see a picture up here on the left-hand side, which was from that snow rodeo. It helps teach the staff and gets everyone together to learn about the proper way to remove salt, but also to learn how to put down the salt. Okay. And number 7, we have all the trucks that when they're preparing for a storm is kept under cover. And then they also wash all of their equipment within the bay. So when, you know, if there's any kind of salt that is on the side of the truck or something like that, they'll wash it, and that goes right down into the WSSC sanitary system and not into our storm drains. And then there's a salt barn where all the salt is kept in and keeps it out from getting washed into the streams. And then we also have a contractor salt drop-off program. So if there's a contractor who has too much salt at the end of the season, right going into spring or something, they can come and drop it off at the city free of charge. And then there's always ongoing street sweeping efforts, where if there's too much salt on the roads or something like that, they can send out a truck to sweep it all up. And then next here is, this is a slide that I put in to help kind of demonstrate the complexity of the different roads out here. And if you see in the bottom left here, there's a little key, and there's state roads, there's county roads, there's city-owned roads, and then there's private roads. So depending on who owns the road, it determines who you have to call if there was a salt spill you were to see out there. And you can notice that, you know, you see Quinch Orchard Road right here, which is a state road. And then if I come over here, you'll see Muddy Branch, which, Sam, is definitely a county road. And then we have a bunch of private roads down here in the Lakelands, Kentlands area, and then also some city roads here. So it's super important to utilize that tool that's going to be on the Gaithersburg Saltwatch website, because that'll really help you understand whose road it is and whose responsibility is. And it gives you more confidence when you're reporting these issues to help get the issue resolved in a quick manner. And I'll go next here. Right here. So who's responsible for plowing my streets? One way that I kind of think of it is all the numbered roads out there. Anything that has like a number is going to be a state road. And then the county roads are just a handful of them that I try to remember. But it does get tricky because portions of some roads like Long Draft Branch or the Game Preserve Road are some county and then some responsible by the city. So it's always good to kind of check on those ones. And then you know, again, for the privately owned ones, you might have to contact the property owner or the HOAs who are responsible. And then here again are some of the contact information, but you can get that on the website. Next. And then the one last thing is I wanted to put in a plug for the Chesapeake Bay Trust Grant Program. This is a grant program that helps fund initiatives like the Saltwatch one. So if you have some kind of salt project or even just a stormwater project in general that you're interested to get off the ground, definitely come and contact me, because I'd love to talk you through the process. You can get up to $30,000 for outreach projects, up to $50,000 if you're actually going to be doing restoration. And if you combine them together, you can get $75,000. So it's definitely a significant chunk of money. And there's lots of partners out there that are looking for anywhere from community members to businesses to get involved and put these projects together. So if you ever have an interest in doing something that's related to what the Saltwatch is doing here, please contact me and we'll talk it through and get you get your a application together. And that's all that I have for me. My contact information is just my name at gaithersburgmd.gov. And always feel free to contact me. One of my favorite parts of my job is chatting with everyone. And I think that's all I have, and I'll pass it over to Jeree.
Thanks, Michael. Isn't it a relief to know that the city is not responsible for the original Muddy Branch salt spill that launched this program?
Such a relief. You'd be telling that story for ages.
I know. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeree Donnelly with G Park.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Can you see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay, good. So my name is Jeree Donnelly, and I also work for the city of Gaithersburg. I am the Gallery and Public Art Program Coordinator. And as part of that, I am also the staff liaison to G Park Arts and Cultures Alliance. And we are really excited because over the last year, we've been partnering quite a bit with Michael on some of these great, what we're calling art in the environment projects. We did a project in the summer that was painting the top of storm drains to help spread the message about not putting things down the drain because it goes straight into our watershed, and we don't want that. But we also then had the idea that we wanted to help spread the message about not oversalting our roads. And we thought a really fun way to do this would be to paint some of the city's plows. So that is what we actually did in September. We took 4 of the city's plows and came up with some ideas and went ahead and got them painted. We thought it would be great to see them coming down the road as a reminder to everybody, especially when it's snowing, about not oversalting. So we had a lot of partners in this project to pull it off. Certainly G Park kind of initiated the idea, but we also worked with the stormwater management team. We worked with the Isaac Walton League to better understand the problem and information that we could share with our painters. We worked with the Benjamin Gaither Center, which is the city's center for our seniors. And we also worked with the Gaithersburg Youth Centers. There's one at Robertson Park and one in Old Town, and the kids helped paint the plows in exchange for SSL hours, which was great. And then we've had a wonderful partner this year with Starbucks on Muddy Branch, and they also wanted to take one of the plows and do some painting as well. So it takes a village. So why would we want to paint the plows? One thing is, of course, to help spread the message about protecting our watershed through using less salt on the roads and sidewalks and impervious surfaces. But we thought that, you know, even more so, it's just fun. I mean, how often do you get to paint a ginormous surface like a snowplow? It's not often that you can paint something that big. So we thought it would be great. And the kids loved it. So did the seniors. We also feel like art should be everywhere. We can reasonably put it, and even better, because it's on a plow, it's not sitting still, it is moving all over, and more people can enjoy it and hopefully see the message. And then, of course, plows are not that pretty to start with, so we felt like they sort of needed a makeover. So to get this project going, kind of the step one that we did when we went out and had these mini workshops with the youth centers and with the senior center was that we needed to brainstorm some slogans or taglines for it. So we came with some ideas, but we really encouraged the groups to think about it after hearing a little bit about the issue. And they came up with some great ones, we thought. So the Benjamin Gaither Center chose SOS, so Save Our Streams or Stop Oversalting. The youth centers chose just a sprinkle will do for one of their plows, and the second one they did Save the Salt for Your Popcorn. And Starbucks chose Even Mermaids Don't Like It Too Salty. So those were the taglines that they used to inspire the artwork. And really our guidance to them was we just want to encourage the less use of salt on the hard surfaces. So the next step that they went through was to think about imagery. So they took their slogan and tried to come up with some ideas that they thought might work on the plow. And what we had told them was definitely simple is better. We wanted it to be able to transfer to the plow surface, and then we were working on it in groups, so many hands need to be able to work on the image together. And it also needed to make a quick impact as it moved fast down the road. So, viewers, as they're looking at the plow, they're only going to see it for maybe a second at the most. So we encourage them to make it big and make it bright and make it bold so that it would really stand out. And then we got to paint day. So we painted for several days. Obviously, it's a messy process to paint a plow, so everyone had to wear clothes and shoes that could get messy. We used street paint like that you would do the surface of the road with, so like parking stripes and things like that. That's the paint that we used on the surface. And so it doesn't come out very easily. So we asked that they come prepared. We used just a few colors. So black, white, red, yellow, blue paint. And then we were able to mix any colors we needed from there. So we had artists there that was helping to mix the colors. And as part of the process, we learned a lot about logistics of painting a plow, having never done this before. We figured out quickly the rubber deflectors on the front of the plows. We wanted to be sure that we incorporated them into the design. And we figured out also you can take them off, and we did do that as we moved along in the process, and that it is much easier to paint the plow if they raise it up a little bit for us. And I'll show you pictures of the kids painting. They were on the ground. We knew our seniors couldn't do that, so Public Works helped us figure out how to raise those plows up so it was a little bit easier. But everyone had a blast. And really the message that I heard from everyone that participated was how great they felt about helping to spread an important message. So we loved that the community came out and helped. So this was our Starbucks team working, and they chose, of course, to do a mermaid design. And their message was really cute, and so we loved it. And they had about 6 people that came out over a couple of days and helped paint. And then the youth centers did a plow as well, and one of them was just a sprinkle will do. And you can see the design a little bit better here, and I think it reflects their ideas pretty well. And then here's a picture of them all sitting under that deflector. But they also did one with the big bucket of popcorn, and the message on that one was just a little sprinkle will do. So save that popcorn, or save that salt for your popcorn. Then the Benjamin Gaither Center also did one, and here's where some of those logistic lessons paid off. They painted a little bit after the youth center, so we had figured out by raising it up, it makes it a lot easier. And we took the deflector off, and we also adjusted the design a little bit, so when the deflector is on, you can see the whole design of it. But this one was the Save Our Streams. So the plows were on display during the Snowplow Rodeo, which was on October 14th, which is a chance for some of the local public works departments to get together and to practice their skills. They are going to be out at Jingle Jubilee, which is going to be on December 4th from 3:30 to 6:30 at City Hall, so you can actually come and see them in person. Plus, we'll all be there as well, helping to spread out or hand out the Saltwatch kits and talk a little bit more about the project. And then, of course, they're going to be on the road all winter long, so you can look for them when it snows all over the city. The paint will only last about a season, kind of depending on the amount of use. So the plows may be painted again next year with all new designs and all new messaging. So we're actually excited that it can be a project that the community can be involved in on a yearly basis. And if you want to know more about G Park and our Art in the Environment projects, you can definitely drop us a line at gpark@gaithersburgmd.gov, or we are also on social media on Facebook and Instagram. You can see pictures there of all of our projects that are going on, and we would love to hear from you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeree. So last, but of course not least, I'm going to pass over presenter power to Carl Van Nest with Muddy Branch Alliance. All right.
Oh my, can you see my screen or not?
Yeah, I can see it. You're good.
Okay, good. Okay, well, my name's Carl Van Est. I'm a director at the Muddy Branch Alliance, and so we've been spending a lot of time monitoring the chloride levels along the stream. And it's a tributary of the Potomac, and it goes all the way down to the Potomac, and of course WSSC picks up the water from the Potomac and sends it back to us. So all the water that goes down the Muddy Branch, a lot of people in Gaithersburg, you're drinking that water a little bit later. So we've been monitoring salt now since 2019, we wanted to make sure that we understood what was going on along the stream, and so we've been partnered with the Isaac Walton League, and we're using their website, cleanwaterhub.org, and we've been recording this data. And so we've got about 4 sites along the Muddy Branch that we've been hitting, and you can see them right here. And we get a variety of readings. This is at in process. This is the monitoring in process here. We've got a slide just like Samantha showed us earlier, and this is from near Great Seneca Highway, and you can see all the 600 level readings. And what happens with the 600 level readings, it's really probably a lot higher than that. The titrators that we use, they max out at about at 600. So, we did, we monitored nearby at Lake Varuna, and one of our volunteers bought new titrators, and we found that was closer to 1,500 parts per million. So rather significant levels. And at Lake Varuna, we actually saw some dead fish in the water, and that was a shame. We were doing a trash cleanup in late February, early March, and we came across some dead fish. We put them all close together, and you can see from the titrator that's there, it's maxing out. I mean, it doesn't go any higher, much higher than that. And the titrators are only good from about 30 to 600 parts per million. So this is where we bought new titrators. And again, we saw them up around 1,500 parts per million. And you can see some of the things that happened. One of the things that happened that caused the chloride levels to be so high was there was a salt dump not far from Lake Varuna. And as it rained, it was getting washed into the stream. Eventually, the city came by and cleaned that up, which was great. But you can see some of the things that happened based on it. So, we're seeing, one thing that's interesting is that if you listen to sites like next door, after a snowstorm, you'll hear people that will start talking about how their water's tasting salty. And it's true, your water does taste salty because, of course, they're putting all this rock salt and brine on our streams, or near our streams, on our roads. And again, it's just going right down to the Potomac and picked up by the WSSC and back to us. And so prior to a lot of these things, we saw, the chloride level would be around 40 parts per million, which is nice. And then after our winter event, the water, the tap, the chloride level in our tap rose to about 130 parts per million. That's just me sticking the titrator in the water. And WSSC found it even higher than that. And so this is some information from the EPA. They would hope that the sodium in our drinking water would not would go from about 30 to 60 parts per million. So salt is a real problem. It's crucial that we keep our roads clear and safe during the winter. And salt is effective at eliminating ice. It's effective. It's cheap. And those are two reasons why we use salt on our roads. But unfortunately, above 250 parts per million, this is the same thing that Samantha was saying earlier, starts to kill wildlife and plant life. And, salt is hazardous to our health. And, elevated salt levels in our water, is a more serious issue for people with high blood pressure or kidney disease. And again, salt does corrode our pipes and our bridges and our roads. And you can see it in the sidewalks and around, doors near stores. And corroded pipes led to some of the problems in Flint, Michigan. So this is an example of too much salt. You see this all over the place after a snowstorm. This is just one example from my street. That's my hand. So why is salt used? Well, again, salt is fairly effective and it's cheap. Sand is messy. It doesn't really melt ice and snow. It can get easily gets covered up, and it gets blown off the roads. When a big truck goes by, it just blows it off. And there's some other reasons why we don't use sand from Minnesota. And does our drinking water get salty? Yes, it does. I've already talked to this slide. And again, salt is distributed by a variety of organizations, the state, the county, city, and a variety of private organizations. Gaithersburg does a really nice job in distributing salt. They monitor the weather. They use brine in a timely manner. They clean up, if you call them. But private organizations need to do a much better job. They're not so aware of the problem, which is part of the problem. But they throw down more salt than they need to, and part of that is they want to appear like they're open for business. Another part is that they're also afraid of slip and fall liability. So those are two significant reasons why they put down a lot of salt. And those are typically condo associations and shopping centers. And again, so again, slip and fall liability. They want to make their places look like they're open for business. And some of these organizations are, the more salt they sell, they make a profit on the salt that they're putting down. So we need to be smarter. What can we do? The city of Gaithersburg understands how much salt they put down, but it's hard to get those numbers from from the State Highway Association, from Montgomery County. We need to make sure that we understand how much salt's being put down throughout the state, and also at the private level, in order to manage it. For a long time, there's a nice spreadsheet that Gaithersburg's got for the last, 10 years. But, earlier than that, they might not have been collecting it at all. So we have to be able to collect that information so that we know how to manage salt. We need to put down less rock salt. I mean, that's just a fact. We don't need to cover our streets from, curb to curb. For example, I live on a flat dead end, and in Gaithersburg, frequently the next day after a snowstorm, it's 40 degrees and it melts anyway. My flat dead end isn't an emergency area. It doesn't need rock salt also. So we also need to make sure that, other things that we can do is we can have government and private organizations clean up after themselves. And one thing that I think is really important is we need to make salts and or salt-like materials more expensive. And if it's more expensive, it'll be used less. They'll be used more sparingly, just where it's really needed. Clearly, we have to make sure that our major thoroughfares, emergency routes, hilly areas, and things like that are covered. But again, my flat dead end doesn't need more salt. And so, there are lots of great ideas out there. Gaithersburg's got a good set of, a good plan. And other states have great ideas too, like Minnesota. And so other ideas that we've got is also to have private salt distribution organizations take a class on smart salt distribution techniques. And, they could get a little icon that they put with their materials, so that, if they take the class and distribute salt smartly, then the organizations that hires them, like the shopping center, could be shielded from slip and fall liability. So that would be a good way to limit the amount of salt that they distribute. So Minnesota believes that, if we're better at handling salt, we can reduce the salt, considerably. And Minnesota's got a real problem there. All their lakes are the chloride levels in all their lakes are rising. They're very concerned about it. And if we can reduce our private distribution by 30%, we can drop the amount of salt in the system by about 10%, which would be a big deal. So again, this is just another picture of salt running off into a storm drain that goes to the Muddy Branch. This is from Potomac Valley Shopping Center. So what are we doing at the Muddy Branch? Well, we're routinely monitoring the salt level along the Muddy Branch. We're hitting now we've started hitting Great Seneca Highway again, Route 28, a couple other locations. We're working with Delegate Lily Chi and working with the Maryland Department of Environment. We're also working with Montgomery County. We were working with Adam Ortiz. There's another gentleman that was just taken over for him. But we're trying to establish a pilot program, again, to try to tie the legal liability to program participation. So here are some people who are all interested in supporting that kind of effort. So also you can help talk about salt usage. I'm going to create a petition, to petition the government to monitor and make sure that we clean up after ourselves. It's no longer good enough just to throw salt down on our roads and streets, and and allow the rain to wash it away. We're going to need to clean up after ourselves. A day or two after the snowstorm, all the trucks have got to go back out and clean it back up. We may be asking for support down the road to reach out to legislators, to help with, the political aspect of getting salt efforts in place. And again, the Isaac Walton League is doing a great job in promoting citizen science to expand monitoring. We can, when you ask state officials or county officials about the streams and the monitoring that's going on there, they'll point you to something that happened in 2015 for 2 weeks. There really isn't any monitoring that's going on other than the stuff that we see that you see through the Isaac Walton League. And again, down the road, other things that we can do to help is things like dial 311, or depending on where the location is, there's city numbers, and there's state numbers and things like that. When you see salt on the road, we've got to make it more of a pain in the neck and more expensive to put salt down. And part of making it more expensive is to call when you see dumps of salt. It's a routine thing. Every year after a snowstorm, it's easy to walk through my small neighborhood and see where the truck has accidentally gone over a pothole or something, and a lot of salt has dropped into the ground. It's not that the city's not doing good things. It's just that it builds up on the back of the truck. Some nice pictures from the Muddy Branch, and this is what the Muddy Branch stream looks like, and you can see the wildflowers growing there. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Carl. So a reminder, folks, that if you have any questions, now is your time to ask them. And I will start reading some out. Go ahead and type those in the questions panel right now. So the first one is for Jeree. How many plows does the city have, and how many of those did you paint?
So we painted 4 this year, but Public Works has let us know that we could paint up to 9. So we are hoping in the future that we can paint more of the plows.
Awesome. And yeah, the follow-up question to that was, will we be able to do this again?
I sure hope so. We really would love to do it again next year and have more groups participate.
Awesome. Yeah, and that was Tracy, and she also said to share her thanks for an excellent presentation and for all the hard work that went into painting the plows. Let's see. So we had another question, which was, can salt that has been used be swept up and reused? And that was from Michael. And the answer to that is absolutely. That's a great way to make sure that that salt that's being left out, the rock salt, isn't just eventually with the next rainstorm going into the storm drain. So that's a really great solution. I mentioned our Clean Water Fellow, who was really fired up about the salt pile. He would be out in our parking lot just sweeping up salt. So, you know, with it, and he found like a teeny tiny shovel, and he was like 6'7", so it was just really hilarious to watch to begin with. But he was always out there doing that, and it both saves the environment so that that salt isn't just going straight into your streams, but it also saves money, so you're not using too much road salt and then having to buy more. All right, and let's see, we have a couple of comments. Beth had said Maryland Department of Natural Resources was apprised of the fish kill at Lake Varuna. Its scientists felt that the chlorides were not the only stressor to the fish. That's likely true because we are in a more developed area. We have tons of people. There are plenty of different water quality issues that we're experiencing today, but the road salt definitely doesn't help when you have an already stressed ecosystem, that's for sure. Let's see. Bill says Saltwatch should measure tap water to raise public awareness. That is a good idea, Bill. We've been talking about ways to do that. We would need a more precise monitoring system for that than the test strips, unfortunately. Let's see. So I think that's really all that we have. I put in the chat bar for folks that our website is iwla.org/saltwatch-Gaithersburg. There you can find info about the city of Gaithersburg stormwater, about G-Park, about Paint the Plows. We link to our partners as well. Tons of info on there, like who to call when you have a road salt spill, what the jurisdiction the streets are in. All of that information, as well as flyers and other outreach resources, are on the website. Feel free to email me or other clean water staff at saltwatch@iwla.org, and we will get back to you. And if you have any questions for the folks that were on this webinar, if you didn't get down their contact info, you can send me a note as well, and I will shoot it to them. And yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or want to get involved beyond the ways that we said today, and sign up for your Saltwatch kit because it is time to get out there and start monitoring. So I want to say thank you to our presenters, Michael Wyant, Jeree Donnelly, and Carl Van Nest for spending their Monday evening with us. And we hope everybody has a safe and wonderful Saltwatch season this winter, and we're excited to get started. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Let's see.